You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, December 24th show, Christmas Eve. I've built a network of elite industry professionals each week sharing their knowledge and expertise with you, my listener. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. To talk with the guests I have in studio, have a chat with me, you can call the show at 1-855-400-1150, 1-855-400-1150, or online at themoneyhour.com. And in studio for our Christmas Eve show, my second guest is Sandi Tampa with Windermere Real Estate. Sandi, thank you for coming back in studio and joining me for the Christmas Eve show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tina. Glad to be here.
And excited for my conversation with Sandi. We're going to be talking about multiple offers, which we have seen a lot of that in 2016, and I think there might be a good chance that we're going to see more of them in 2017. But first, a little bit about Sandi. Sandi is a skilled veteran with 12 years of residential real estate experience. She is based out of the Bellevue and primary focuses on the east side. Sandi is highly accredited managing broker. Her credentials include accredited buyer's representative, certified residential specialist, and master certified negotiation expert. What does this all mean? It means she is dedicated to being the best she can be to serve you and your referrals with the highest level of professionalism and skill possible. Sandi specializes in applying her local expertise and market knowledge to her business. Experienced negotiations and cutting-edge marketing strategies combined with uncompromising integrity is the trademark of Sandi's service. Sandi has worked in every facet of the industry representing sellers, buyers, and investors. So, Sandi, we're talking about multiple offers and multiple offer strategies and how to win. How did your clients win in 2016, and how are you going to help them continue to win in 2017? So what are you seeing, Sandi, in the marketplace right now?
This December has been, in my experience, the craziest December I've experienced. We are in multiple offers. Usually, so Eric was quoting months of inventory. On the east side, we ended up November with less than 1 month of inventory.
Wow.
And what a month of inventory means, it's how we as real estate professionals take the pulse of the market. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it takes the inventory we have now, if nothing else comes on the market and buyers kept up the buying rate, how long it would take for that to buy off. So it's a meaningless number, but anything that's 3 months or less is a strong seller's market.
So if you hear that 3 months or less, and in November ended in
less than 1 month on the east side, you quoted King County. But so even here in this little niche, and it was the lowest that we had on record. So it's just there's more buyers than there are sellers. And I do think a lot of that was fueled by the reality of interest rates finally increasing, which they did. And, we've been talking about it for how many years? 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe some fear of what the new administration might bring change and just trying to get that secured.
Makes total sense. So, Sandi, what are some keys to successful real estate purchases if we're talking about coming up into our new year for 2017?
Exactly. And Eric alluded to this too. It's being prepared. So the very first step is absolutely understanding you're getting pre-approved, knowing what your people live in the payment, not the price.
Yes.
And so just making sure we understand we're using the current interest rates, talking to a mortgage professional, getting that understanding. Then the second thing is meeting with a real estate broker and walking through and understanding what to expect in the process. And you need to have those difficult decisions. Like a lot of, on the east side, we have a lot of older homes, and you're going to be dealing with lead-based paint. So here's an example. You don't want to know how you feel about lead-based paint when you're making an offer. This is something that you need to think through and know what your strategy is going to be with that, because you need to decide whether you want to accept or waive a risk assessment.
Yes. And
having those discussions, so then when it comes time to make that offer, you feel armed and ready to go. Also, understanding as a buyer, you're going to have strengths and weaknesses. Typically, buyers don't have a lot of cash. Okay, so how are we going to mitigate that? Because we are going to be competing with cash.
Yes.
So trying to figure that out. And then oftentimes buyers who don't have a lot of cash tend to be able to have flexibility on close dates. So then maybe leveraging that and just really understanding that buyer, what they can bring to the table, and them knowing their tools that they have for the situation.
Makes sense. So, being prepared, preparing with your mortgage professional, getting that all dialed in, being prepared with your realtor and getting all dialed in. And I like what you said, Sandy, with the interest rates, because just think right now, and there is somebody out there listening that missed out on a house, which means they missed out on that interest rate because they were not prepared in the process. So get that over with, because the interest rates most likely are going to continue to increase for 2017. So you want to be ready to run and prepared, as Sandy is saying. So Sandy, let's talk about for my first time home buyers. If I have somebody that's listening to the show right now, and they're going to be venturing into their new journey, their new season in life of homeownership in 2017, what advice can you give them?
Well, I think for first-time homebuyers, there's a lot of information out there as far as you can jump on Zillow or Redfin, and I think you feel as a buyer that you know more than you really do. So I think it's truly sitting down, making sure when you meet with, don't just call a real estate agent and say, hey, I want to go see a house. Try to create that foundation, sit down, have someone who can walk you through the process and really get the facts versus what I call the noise. Your Aunt Edna might tell you some horror stories. Your coworker is going to have some horror stories, but just really trying to get that facts and build a partnership with someone who you trust and have a good rapport with.
Yeah, great advice, because with technology right now, especially with our younger generation, which all of us are a step up from that generation, but it's so easy to get everything. The reality is it's so easy to get so much information, and a lot of it really isn't the accurate information or specific to what you personally need. And I talked about budgeting during Money Chat, which you just talked about in our last piece there, in really being prepared as far as payment. It's not about price, it's about payment. Ultimately, what are you ready to make in a mortgage payment? So dialing in on a high level with that, budgeting in, is really going to be useful to anybody buying, but especially for our first-time home buyers. Sandy, what about move-up buyers? Are there things different that that move-up buyers should be doing than first-time buyers, or what tips do you have for them?
Well, a move-up buyer, it can be daunting, right?
Yeah.
Because you really, at the end of the day, you have to choose the lesser of two evils for you personally. Whether you want to risk owning no homes and possibly being homeless, I mean, that's a little dramatic, or if you want to risk owning two homes.
Yeah.
And you're going to fall specifically, neither are perfect, but you're going to have a risk tolerance for one or the other. Whether you want to try, I call it the bunny hop, where you have an interim place to live in between. So a lot of people like to go that route because they know you'll for sure then know what your house is going to sell for.
Sure.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And we can speculate, but if supply comes up or if demand goes down with interest rates going up, but it's just having that crystal clear plan. Or if you can buy two homes, just because you can, and you can speak to this point, just because you can maybe come up with the down payment doesn't mean you can qualify for both loans.
Yes, exactly. So that's why the mortgage piece is so important, and the real estate piece, because the strategy and how to coordinate all that on your end for selling and buying or not and holding versus the financing side. So yes, you do have to qualify for both mortgage payments if you're moving out of a primary residence into a new one. Some people can, some can't. And there's also strategies on financings to come in with a lower down payment if you don't have the funds right now. So there's some creative things that if you feel that you want to take that step of buying and buying first and then selling later, you may miss out if you don't understand the financial strategies that are behind it, thinking that you need to have that money from your home. So Sandy, from an agent's perspective, not from me, I do mortgages for a living, so I do have my perspective, but hearing it from you, the importance of being pre-approved.
Oh, it's critical. We're not going to go look at homes until you're pre-approved,
yes.
Right? I mean, there's just no reason for that. Well, first of all, it's going to create what your true price point is. And there's not going to be any surprises. It costs you nothing, and it's inevitable.
Yes.
So we need to do that early in the process. And it's critical.
Yeah. So if you're thinking of buying, first step is to get pre-approved. So Sandy, what else is important? Anything that we've left out? Well, I know there's a lot of things, but really in your importance high list.
Well, talking a little bit to a point Eric made about how his clients are more the people who have chosen location over price, because with real property, there's price, location, and type of home. And here on the market in the east side, what we've got is people who take the price and location, and that's what they're choosing, and then they're getting what they can get with that. So, for instance, I have people who are now settling for a one-bedroom condo, where before they would have, of course, they would have preferred a single-family home, but the reality of the situation is they want to be in this location, and this is what it's going to take. Yeah. Versus some people can drive down to Pierce County, and they want that bigger home, but they need to keep that price fixed.
Yeah. So really just having an understanding of what you're willing to do, understanding your options, and then figuring out what works best for you. And if you are doing the South End, just make sure that you're trying that commute out during normal commute hours, so you can get a good idea of how it realistically is going to look for you. So a formula for success. Is there one out there, Sandi?
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot lately. There's a lot of new agents in the business, and everybody's looking for this formula of how do you become successful, and what's your magic bullet, and multiple offer situations, or this or that. And at the end of the day, real estate's so dynamic that every situation, so every buyer's different with the strengths and weaknesses that they have. And then every house is different, and maybe it's going to have more appraisal risk than another. And then every listing agent's different. Maybe they have more experience. Maybe they're brand new and they don't have the experience in knowing what's going to come next. And then the seller could be different. So you've got to establish your basic box of tools. I call it my multiple offer toolbox. And then we just have to kind of pick and choose based on, first of all, how do you feel about the house? Is this the one? Or, I would pay this for it, whatever that price is. And then we come and figure it out. Like if the seller hasn't bought something yet and they need to sell before they buy, maybe we'll try a rent back situation if the buyer is able to stomach that. That's not for all buyers. Maybe they need to get rid of a lot of furniture. Maybe you can get creative and help them with that in a non-monetary way. How would the lender want that?
Yeah. Well, yes. No monetary value.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, depending on the lender and how they're going to look at that. So, you've just broken down that as a buyer, you have to be prepared with your financing. You have to be prepared with your real estate side, which you're going to get through your real estate broker. And then as a broker and an agent, you're getting prepared to strategize based on all of these factors. So there is no magic formula to your success. It is understanding what the dynamic of what's happening with each individual player and that property, and then putting it together to present and come forward with the best offer that you possibly can. And that would be the magic formula. Takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of expertise in mastering that.
Exactly. And you'll find some buyers, they'll say, oh, by the fifth offer we were able to do the offer correctly. And that's where the preparation, if you can.
Yes, that's a problem. You want to be able to do it correctly the first time around if you can.
If you can. And it still might take you 5 offers to get there.
But you don't want to learn it through those 5 offers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you need to is to be flexible. It's buyers, it's really tough to be a buyer, and the seller and the listing agent sometimes get overwhelmed, and it can feel like you're getting jerked around a little bit on the buy side. So you've just got to really be as flexible as possible and try to be agile.
Yeah, makes sense. I wanted to talk to you about risk, but I'm going to do that when I talk with the two of you, because I want to hear the difference between risk on the east side. What kind of risks are you taking in those offers versus risk on the south end? So coming up next on the Money Hour, conversation with Sandi Tampa and Eric Tamlin. We're going to talk to the both of them together about the difference between the two markets. Today we're talking about the east side and the south end market, right here on 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.